Right, okay, we are recording and it's now time to get into the meeting proper. So if I can introduce you to your expert panelists, and I'm going to switch on to speaker view now. And we've got together, unfortunately, one of our panelists, Professor Peter Ray, he can't be with us. He was a victim of the change of travel regulations, I believe, when he came back into the country recently. He had to isolate for a few days, and so he's now working. But Professor Ray has agreed to present at our first meeting of the new year in February. So we'll get a long session with Professor Ray, questions and answer session with him. So today we have with us a very, very expert panel. We've got a guy here we just call Mr. Balance, Andrew Clements, from hi Andrew. And Andrew is, we're very lucky, he was one of the founders of the Leicester, never know Andrew if it's Leicester or Leicestershire Balance Clinic.
Leicester,
but which I believe is one of the best NHS clinics in the country. We're lucky to have such good resources in Leicestershire, and obviously we'd hope there were more clinics like that around the country. Andrew, how many years, dare I ask, have you been dabbling in balance?
Oh, it's over 20 now.
20. Yeah, this is why we call you Mr. Balance. And then with Andrew, we've got Lynette, Dr. Lynette Simpson. Are you there, Lynette? I can't see. Say hi, and your picture should appear.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. There we go. Now, Lynette, you're from a slightly different approach. It's clinical psychology. And for some of a lot of our members will remember seeing you earlier when you presented to us. And I believe now that you're beginning to see some balanced patients coming through to your department.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I work for the Department of Medical Psychology, so that we take referrals from the Balance Clinic in Leicester, Leicestershire. So yes, we're starting to see some more referrals come through, which is great news for us as a department. Yeah. So that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's great news for us, the Balance community.
Yeah.
And then finally on our panel today, we've got Professor Andrew Hugo. Hi, Andrew. If you say hi, your picture will appear on our video. So.
Sorry, I was muted. Hi.
There we go. Yeah, we can see you now. And Andrew, you are the Professor of Creative Computing, Leicester University. And just to explain, because you know, I always forget this. Explain, what does that school do in the university? What is it all about, creative computing?
Well, it's really it's where the sort of art and design and business side meet computer science. So it's a sort of hybrid. It's about a third computing, a third business, and a third creativity.
Great. And when I explain, Andrew, that you've had many years for some years in both sides,
yeah,
I think it's amazing that you're running a department with many years, and what an accomplishment. And also for those members who don't know, Andrew was instrumental in creating what was really we call the Balance Spectrum, which is a website where you can see all of the different balance disorders on one page and explain symptoms and other aspects of that. And I'm sure you don't mind me saying, Andrew, that comes from the fact that you've got yourself on that scale of autism that you deal with as well as many as. So, yeah. Which I think makes you an amazing fella, hence being on the panel. And today, Andrew will also give the perspective of a sufferer to some of the questions that we go through. That's it. I'm going to shut up. Rupal, Kelly, it is over to you with the first question. And I'm really looking forward to this. So bye from me for now.
All right, thank you. So the first question is that we're approaching Christmas, and any social occasion is a potential source of anxiety and stress for anyone, and particularly with a balanced condition. Yet we all want to be there for our loved ones and make the best of this time for ourselves. So how do we stop the balance grinch from stealing our Christmas, and hopefully use the same bit of advice for any other social occasions, because I know how stressful they can be? I'm going to start off with Andrew Hugill with that one. Andrew.
Okay, thanks. I mean, I think there are several sort of ways you can deal with this. I'm going to leave the autism to one side for a moment, because that's just for me, but not everybody here is autistic. But I think that regarding the balance, the first sort of important thing is just patience, because I think, you know, you need to take time and allow for the fact that you may experience a balance problem during a social interaction. So just being patient with that yourself. I mean, obviously you want other people to be patient as well, but it's not so easy for others to understand always. But I think if you're patient with yourself, that sends out a message to others too. So that means just accepting sometimes, you know, if you have a vertigo attack or whatever, that's the reality of your condition, and accepting that and being patient about it is a good way forwards. And then, I mean, the problem with social interaction, of course, is you have to perform. And there's this feeling of a sort of extra, you've got to make an effort somehow, you know, and this is something I understand very well from an autistic perspective. So I guess it's partly education for the people around you, to have them understand that performance in that situation does require extra effort, and allow yourself not to have to perform, essentially. That's what I find helps, you know.
And how do you just as an additional question, but how do you deal with other people and their expectations, Andrew?
Well, you just have to be, you have to allow yourself to be yourself, and other people have to come to terms with that and accept it. This is not easy at all, because of course sometimes you feel like you might be letting people down, or you know, somehow not matching up to the spirit of Christmas or something like that. But you know, the facts about balance disorders are that this thing happens to you almost without provocation. You know, I was talking to someone the other day, and she was asking my advice, and I said to her, you know, when you have a vertigo attack, it's not because you've done something wrong, you know, and she burst into tears and said that her family had been telling her that it was all her fault, you know. And I think this is I think a lot of people have that feeling that somehow they're responsible for the situation they're in. But it's not true. I mean, it's just something that happens, and you have to accept it and kind of roll with it, I guess. So, sorry, I'm drifting from your question. So, personally, for social interaction, I tend to adopt behaviours that are based on other people. So I will to some extent learn from other people, and my behaviour adapts to their behaviour. So that's a kind of autistic trait, I guess. But not everybody can do that, and I think I think that kind of masking itself can be quite exhausting. So I think the best advice I can offer is to allow yourself to be yourself, and to let other people understand who you are and why you're behaving in the way that you are. And hopefully, if you're surrounded by decent, nice people, you will get some understanding and acceptance of that. I mean, personally, I often feel that I have to make that point to people, you know. So it's actually almost an advocacy thing, that I'm advocating on behalf of balance disorder. I'm going to say, well, I'm trying to avoid the word sufferers, because I don't want to introduce a suffering culture into this discussion, but I think people need to know what's going on, so they understand it. And this is true for any invisible disability. I mean, I've got three. I've got the balance. I've got hearing loss, and I'm autistic. All invisible. So how do you convey that to people? You have to advocate to some extent, but you don't want to be boring and sort of bring everybody down. So there's a line to be struck here, keeping the mood good, but at the same time making people aware.
Thank you, Andrew. Lynette, you're frantically nodding your head to that. I would imagine you're agreeing to a lot of that, advocating for yourself. You're on mute.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, yes, indeed. Yes. Do you want me to go and give my tips? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, I am agreeing definitely with what Andrew's saying. It is about putting yourself first, isn't it? And advocating for yourself. So important. So I think from me, in terms of the question, yes, I think balance conditions don't stop at Christmas. They don't stop, do they? So I think it is about being realistic about what you can do and what you want to be taking part in. Don't pressure yourself or overpromise people in terms of what needs to happen and what you can get involved in. I think keeping to your routines that you do to help your condition is really important. Don't let your own routines kind of go out the window in terms of what helps you manage day to day. And I would think about kind of in terms of Christmas, if it's Christmas Day that you particularly have a lot of kind of demands and social responsibilities around that day, then think of that day as like the epicenter and then plan your week accordingly around that. It could be Boxing Day that you have a lot of people over, whichever is your full on day. Think about that and then think about around it and how you're going to plot the week out so that you can have enough rest, relaxation, and things that are just going to help you balance the week so it's not too full on. So I would be doing that. And then I would think about prioritization. So prioritizing all the time. So keep your to-do list and then keep reprioritizing that day to day. There's a lot of things that we're doing. This morning I was out buying presents for teachers, and there's always something going on, isn't there, at this time of year? So think about what really needs to be done now. Can things be put off? What can be delayed? What things are using up a lot of your energy? And that could be physically or it could be mentally. So think about tasks as high demand in terms of, are they physically taxing or are they mentally taxing? Think about that in terms of your balance. Think about, can you delegate? Can you ask for help? Is there something you can do to kind of pull other people in to help you out with things? Don't take it all on yourself. And then think about then, once you prioritize things, how you're going to plan. As I said, think about this timetable idea. What needs to be done when? How can you make sure that the week looks nice and balanced? Because the problem is that some people can get into is that they overexert and then they have problems in terms of what we call kind of a boom and bust. So people kind of then need to rest because they've kind of overdone it in whatever way that is. So avoid that by planning kind of well. And I think it is, as Andrew was touching on that advocating thing, I think it is a lot about communicating your needs to other people. Let people be clear, about what you can manage, what you want to get involved in, what you're not. Keep people in the loop, keep people knowing what's going to help you. I would also say, think about the one thing or activity that you enjoy most at Christmas. What's the part of Christmas that you enjoy the most? That's your bit of it that you really love, and make sure that's prioritized and that's on the schedule. Because it's your Christmas too, so make sure that that is something that you are going to be doing, and you're prioritizing that above all else. Learn that little word, no, is quite important. So make sure, if you want a different outcome, it's in terms of, keep kind of get involved in things, you say yes, and then you feel bad afterwards because you haven't been able to manage it very well. So think about no and using that, because it's important to kind of change and give you a different outcome to something. I think it's important when we're doing that and thinking about no, think about the idea that you make yourself feel guilty. It's not the person making you feel guilty for something, you're making yourself feel guilty. You can turn down a request. You're not, rejecting the person for their request. You're politely saying, it's just about the request. I don't really want to do that. It's not going to fit in with my week. So remember that it's okay to say no, and stop all these shoulds. I should, I ought, I need to, I must. Stop those, stop it, stop it, stop it. Stop the shoulds and the oughts. Concentrate on actually saying no at times and thinking about yourself. It's important. So do that. And then just making sure that you have some time to recharge. Give yourself a little bit of a break, a bit of a breather in that week, because it is full on. There's loads you can be involved in and getting up to. So keep a little bit that's just for you, a bit of a break, breather, time out, and just breathe.
That's some fantastic,
Generally.
Fantastic advice, Lynette. So advocate for yourself, learn to say no, learn to pace yourself. And we've got lots of people in the chat box as well. So hopefully Kelly will read some of those out very shortly. But before we do that, Andrew Clements, what advice can you give us?
Okay. Yes, as I've been jotting some things down because they're all important, what the other speakers have said. But the things I can try and add that are slightly different and more, if I say, practical. One of the important things is, if you can't understand your symptoms and what triggers some of your symptoms, it's very hard for someone else to understand that. So the more understanding that you can get of your own symptoms, so you know what will be provocative or might create something, you can then, with communication, prepare for that. So when I see people, one of the main things I try and do is look for the symptoms they've got and what's creating those symptoms and how we can either help them or plan for it. So, for example, if you know that flashing Christmas tree lights are really bad for you, if you're going to have a Christmas party, you can plan ahead and say, if it's at your family's house, well, can we have the Christmas tree lights off? Because that flashing might trigger some of my symptoms. Something as simple as that might just diminish it. You might be looking at your placement in the room. So if it's not at your house, sometimes going into a completely new environment can be quite sort of destabilizing for your symptoms. So the more you can prepare for that and know that you prefer to sit in a corner environment, with facing a window so you've got natural light, all of those things will be different for different people. But if you know what is better for your symptoms and also what is worse for your symptoms, you can plan ahead. So the planning and the communication is really important. And helping your family understand your symptoms is really important, because if you can understand your symptoms, you can make someone else understand it. If you can't understand your symptoms, it's very hard for someone else to know what you're going through or what you mean by saying, well, I just can't be there, I can't tolerate that. There are specific conditions, for example, with Meniere's, if you're going out for a Christmas meal, you've probably been strict with your Meniere's, not having any salt in your diet. And then if you go out for a Christmas meal, there will be a huge salt component of any gravy that they say the hotel will have. So you might need to plan ahead and contact the hotel and say, for our Christmas meal, I'm intolerant of salt, or whatever you want to say. But with Meniere's, you don't want to be having the normal gravy because it has a huge sort of content. So it's the planning ahead again and being aware of the sort of things that might provoke symptoms. Because if you can sort of tick off all the things that could be provocative, you'll make it much more enjoyable for yourself. Because stress for any balance condition, stress and anxiety, will make your balance system feel worse. And then it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy that you get so worried about an event that in fact you do then feel really bad. Whereas if you can plan for the things you can change and might be provocative for your symptoms, you can maybe sort of minimize the effects. I think the recovery time that was mentioned is really important. because with any vestibular problems, you'll know that you can do a certain amount, but you'll go past that point and then it becomes too provocative. If you keep going, you need to know when you can take a break. You need to know and have that plan in place, that you say to your family, well, after this, I might just sit quietly for a few minutes in another room, just so my system can recover. If you've got that new label of triple PD, the sort of persistent postural perceptual dizziness, that's all your sort of systems are on edge. You're hypervigilant. So if you put yourself into a noisy environment with flashing lights and lots of people and you're having to turn your head a lot, that's the sort of environment which will create symptoms. So it's actually planning ahead so you know what you can cope with, then you'll enjoy it better and it won't be as provocative. So it does depend what conditions you've got. I think I've covered all the things I jotted down. Yes. So I think
some great advice there. And I know, Kelly, that people are putting things in the chat box as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody seems really encouraged by the tips that have been put forward so far from our panel, which is great to hear. Deborah has offered up one of her own, which I really think is a nice one as well, and a lot of members too. So she's put she has to take annual leave before she's going to have a really busy day on a weekend, that she can get her basic chores done slowly beforehand. So I guess that feeds in with the planning, doesn't it, in terms of kind of what busy day, what else do I need to do, and have that opportunity to take that day beforehand.
Yeah, great. I can see Andrew Clements and Lynette both nodding away frantically there. Does anybody have any questions around this then before we move on to the next question? Please either put your hand up. Yes, we've got Andrew who wants to say something.
I just wanted to come back, having heard other people's advice, all of which has been absolutely great, and just sort of throw out there a few things I do to help. Some of these sort of overlap with the autism, some of them are more balanced focused, but you know, if I just throw out a few things. So one is I get people to send me photographs of the space that I'm going to be in advance, and I find that does a lot to reduce anxiety, particularly if you're going to be in a space where you can't see the corners of the room. Now, I don't know whether other people have this problem, but I've always had it, and it's been made much worse by the Meniere's. So I need to know where the corners are, and often if you're in a big occasion, you can't tell where the corners are. So getting photographs and knowing how big the room is and where the edges are is great. Another thing that sets me off is smells. So encouraging people not to wear perfume, and people are cooperative on that if you let them know in advance and they understand, you know. That helps because I basically any perfume and I'm gone. And then routines were mentioned, and these are big with me. But of course, the problem is with Christmas is that it always breaks the routine. So what I'm doing now, and this is something I've done over the last couple of years, is I actually put in my calendar everything that I'm going to do, like a complete checklist of you know, even down to the level of walking out of the house, carrying this, putting this in my bag, doing, you know, taking this, taking that. And then people are familiar with Hugh Gill's gadgets. Noise cancelling headphones are just fantastic, and you get a pair of noise cancelling headphones and that will save you massive amounts of pain. And also I use clip-on shades, but you know, some kind of sunglasses to cut down glare really help as well. So those are just a few strategies.
That's fantastic. Janet, Janet, you had your hand up, didn't you?
Please. Andrew Clements, based on something you just said, do you think there's any connection between complex PTSD and triple PD? You said something about being hypervigilant, which is a symptom of PTSD.
Yes. I mean, there probably is. There would be a link. I mean, whereas PTSD is probably a much more, complex sort of, that's post-traumatic stress syndrome, for those that don't know. So something really serious and nasty must have happened to set that off. Whereas triple PD is a label given to a set of symptoms which start off with a vestibular problem, but then the person's system becomes oversensitive, almost a bit like a migraine situation, that there are sensitizers, whether it's perfume or noise or smells or light. So with triple PD, there's an increased to sort of hypervigilance of the system, whereas PTSD is much more deeply ingrained and is more of a psychological component. And I'd look at Lynette she might answer that element better than me. But we have seen people with PTSD for a whole range of reasons, whereas triple PD is something that can develop when people have a vestibular problem. So you can have those things separately, or they can overlap. But I think if you've got PTSD, you could quite easily, if you have a vestibular problem, develop triple PD as well, because it's just actually sort of, it could follow on from it. But if you've got triple PD, it doesn't mean you develop PTSD.
Andrew, thank you. And Janet, thank you for your question. If we could stick to sort of the general questions, I promise you we'll try and do that towards the end. But I do want to move on to the next question. And I promise you we'll also try and get through all the messages that are coming through on chat too. So the second question for the panel then. Traditionally, we are then all asked to consider our New Year resolutions for a better New Year. Most of us fail dreadfully when it comes to New Year resolutions, but what resolutions do the panel recommend that may generally help the majority of our members to live a better year with our balance conditions? Let's start off with Lynette.
Yeah, bad idea, the old resolutions. yeah, bad idea, forget it. They'll never last. But anyway, resolutions, yes. Instead of resolutions, I would say work out your goals and what you want to achieve in the year ahead and break them down into little goals. So always start with little mini steps, baby steps to whatever you're doing. Really think about it and break it down into steps. And then I guess for me, so I'm a psychologist, so it's all going to be about you and looking after you. So I would say be more invested in yourself as a resolution. Self-care is really important. Prioritize you and your well-being. I would say be kind to yourself. I think there's a big driver certainly in the work that we do now. It's a lot about compassion focused therapy, which is all about being self-compassionate, kind towards yourself, speaking to yourself with the words that you would speak to a really good friend if you were giving them advice and you were trying to encourage them. It's about turning that idea that you would willingly give to somebody else, a family member or a friend, turning that advice towards yourself and being kind in the words that you talk in your own head to yourself. We beat ourselves up far too much, don't we, I think? And I think it's about, trying to be kind in words. And then the third one for me would be about keeping sight of what's important to you. You might need to alter the way that you do things because of a long-term health condition, but it's always about just keeping sight of what's important. It may be doing things in a different way to how you would have done previously, but still keep those going. Keep you. Keep doing the things that matter and keep you ticking and buzzing and happy.
But how do you deal? Then do you deal with the guilt?
The guilt,
because that sounds quite selfish in some respects. And,
yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so I think it's about that. That's why I said self-care. It's about turning that phrase around, that's selfish. Why is that considered selfish? We're terrible. It's about the words and the language that we're using towards that. And I think it's about saying, well, you wouldn't, it's like keeping maintenance on a car, isn't it? You wouldn't kind of keep it going and let it run out of petrol and not maintain it. You've got to maintain a car, haven't you? You've got to kind of keep it going and keep all those elements, you've got to keep your service history, etc. So it's about keeping that in mind for you and keeping you going and what's important to keep those bits filled up. And it's about physically and mentally, isn't it? Keeping our well-being going. It's not selfish. It's about transferring that in your head. Use better language, self-care.
Thank you. Andrew Clements.
Well, I've just jotted down for myself there with New Year's resolutions. I suppose anyone with a vestibular problem, especially if they've seen me, knows that exercise and movement is important. Doesn't have to be specific vestibular rehabilitation as such, but movement is important, because otherwise vestibular problems stop you moving, because movement creates symptoms. But that's the definition of how things should improve. Movement is the way that vestibular problems do resolve. So for a New Year's resolution, planning to doing a little bit more walking. Doesn't have to be long distance walking, but keeping active, keeping physical. And if something does create symptoms, doing it in a lesser amount, but doing it will help your system try to cope with those symptoms. Because otherwise, if you move and it creates symptoms, if you stop moving, then even less movement will create symptoms, and it's just a vicious circle. So you've got to try and break out of it. So I suppose my resolution will be trying to build up just gentle exercise tolerance, trying to get out if the weather's okay, so being more active. I would mention something because in some of the comments about cognition and planning and thinking, brain fog is a term that a lot of patients with vestibular problems have used that term for many, many years. Well, hopefully all of you have now noticed that because of the COVID situation, brain fog seems to be now a recognised descriptor, because people with COVID or long COVID are using the terminology brain fog. So that is becoming more recognised in the normal conversation and literature, that brain fog is something that does exist, whereas I know people with vestibular problems have often felt that. The website for the VEDA, the Vestibular Equilibrium Disorders Association, and the website is just the simple www.vestibular.org, has some very good basic articles written from a patient's perspective about the impairment of thinking, cognition. So you may want to get those, and I suppose otherwise, if people can't, they can contact me at the hospital, because they're really good to show other people so they can understand why you can't plan and think things through. So that, it gives you some sort of plans how you can try and deal with, brain fog and the cognition, thinking, planning problems. A little bit like Andrew had mentioned, sometimes planning and writing things down so you know what you're doing. But that website is a good site. It's a good resource for professionals and for patients. And they have some really good, simple little articles on single page PDF files about planning and cognition, which is thinking.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you very much. Andrew Hugill.
Yes, New Year's resolutions. Well, I've never really understood this convention. And it seems to be like basically they're just a litany of failure, aren't they? Because you resolve, and then by February you've failed. So one way to make life better would be not to make New Year's resolutions. I think that would probably help everybody take some pressure off themselves by, the last thing we need is another thing we have to keep up with, in theory, for a whole year. But that's a slightly jokey reply, because I know what the question's really asking. And so the thing I noted down, awareness that the current situation is temporary, which from my experience, the underlying condition is the same. I still have Meniere's, I'm still autistic, but the experience that I'm having at a particular time and on a particular day is temporary and passes, and it's not always like that. And I'm doing all right at the moment, balance-wise. I had a couple of drop attacks about a year ago now, but since then I've been okay, and I feel like, well, those drop attacks were very disturbing, but they were temporary things, So I remind myself of that. And then I guess the other thing I would resolve to do, but not make a New Year's resolution of it, is to be even more appreciative of my wife and the people who help me and support me, because frankly, without them, I wouldn't really be functioning at all. So, trying to show appreciation for everybody whose support is your support network.
Some great advice there, Andrew. Thank you. Sheila's got a hand up. Sheila, did you have a question relating to this?
Yes, I do. Can you hear me okay? I'm not sure.
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Yeah. I saw Professor Ray about 3 weeks ago, after 2 years of sort of going on with these deliberation that I've had. I was taken to hospital from work in January 2020, and it's been ongoing since then. I've had various tests done. Obviously, the turn you upside down, inside out, and this, that, and the other. And they didn't come up with a conclusion. And then when I saw Professor Ray about 3 weeks ago, he confirmed that he thought it was BPPV, which is good, which is, sort of to have that confirmation of that. My work have been absolutely awful with my condition, and saying you can't take any more time off within the next 3 months, and this, that, and the other, and blah blah blah. But now, because he sent the letter, which he has done, to my doctors, and I've referred that to my HR, they have now confirmed that it's a disability and I shouldn't have to worry about anything going forward.
Sheila, what was your question, Sheila?
I'm still not sure. Okay, Professor Ray said BPPV, but there's still no sort of confirmation that it is that, and I don't know where I go forward treatment wise.
I think obviously Professor Ray isn't here at the moment, but and I'm guessing Andrew would probably advise further conversation with Professor Ray. Andrew.
Yeah.
Yes, well, it's difficult. I mean, sort of what you're saying is, it sounds a little bit like you're not sure exactly what's going on, but at least your work now have a letter, and Peter's letters are often very detailed and good, so they're useful. The thing with BPPV as a condition, it comes and goes, and it's either there or it's not, and if it's present, it can be quite debilitating, and if it's gone, you can have a better patch. So I suppose work has to know you've got this condition which can come and go. It's the same with Meniere's. Meniere's is a condition which can sort of relapse and then come back, but it does classify as a disability, as a chronic health condition, and that can help with employment law. So anyone with vestibular problems, getting an accurate diagnosis is important, because that then can help you with work, because they can't just then put you on the same rules and get rid of you if you've got a disability. They have to take it into allowance. But the other thing about, well, from what you were saying, it's difficult to answer anything specifically, but whatever Peter's written in the letter was good enough for your work to take it on board with occupational health. So
thank you, Andrew, and Sheila, thank you for your question. If I could just ask if we keep sort of any general questions, please, to the end, just because we've got the panel, and it'd be great to get the specific questions first, and then any general questions. Kelly, is there anything relating to New Year resolutions coming through?
Not in the comments. It's more general questions, so I've got those ready to tee up later if we get some time.
So we will do those towards the end. So please be patient. I know how frustrating it is. I think we've all been there at some stage when we're not sure where we're at with our condition, and we need as much advice as possible from whoever we can get it from. So I totally understand the frustration of everyone today, but hopefully we can get you some great advice, Kevin, on the meeting today.
Yeah,
we'll come back to the panel very shortly as well.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Rupert. It's been excellent so far. So much advice. Again, hopefully all of us watching it will see what a diverse set of conditions these are for us, and how we have an awful lot in common, but there's so much variety to what we suffer and when. But great advice coming through from everyone. We're just going to move away from the questions now for about 10 minutes and go to, I don't know if you can all see this wonderful thing. It's called the Dizzy. They are the annual awards by Life on the Level. And it's something close to our hearts that we think not only of balanced conditions, one of the world's best kept secrets, because nobody seems to know about them except those of us who have suffered with them, and of course our experts. And the awards are just an opportunity for us to say thank you to people and organisations that we feel the judges panel have done something good in the last year for our community. What I'm going to attempt to do is share a screen with you, which is fraught with disaster. But let's see if you, RuPaul, let me know, can you see?
Yep, can see that.
Yeah.
Now, super, and hopefully that is showing. So straight into the awards, and we've got various categories, and the Diz is 2021. We've got no orchestra this year, but you just have to imagine the drum rolls. So I say awards for people or organisations that have done special things this year. First category, outstanding contribution to the sport group and its members. And there's been quite a few great contributions this year, but we have to, as usual with awards, we've got to just select one or two winners. The first winner for this category, outstanding contribution, I'm pleased to say that winner is with us today, is Dr. Lynette Simpson, for the work done earlier this year, where it became apparent that Lynette's department could be actually seeing referred patients from the balance clinic and helping with the psychology, the anxiety that I have to say, when I went down with Meniere's 16 years ago, and I found a very close second to the physical symptoms was the mind games, the lack of confidence, my life is over, I'm a failure, my life's ended. That was awful, and I just hope that the work Lynette is now doing in her department is going to make a tremendous difference to those who, as I did, suffered so greatly mentally with this problem, which is called a balance problem. Yet by far the biggest issues I faced were my own demons in my mind. So thank you, Lynette, you're our winner. Can we have a few words from you as an acceptance speech as I pass you your award?
Well, I'm absolutely thrilled. I was not expecting that. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, it's really nice to kind of come back here today and see everybody again. And I think you've certainly welcomed me in with open arms as a group. So thank you so much. And I think, yes, kind of that link between UHL, kind of the Balance Clinic now, and our department has been a really positive kind of outcome for us this year. And I'm certainly keeping track of referrals. So I'm hoping that if we get enough referrals, we can start running groups within our department as well for people. And that would just be fantastic for the year ahead. So thank you so much. I'm really thrilled. Thanks. It's really kind.
Brilliant. No, well, thank you, Lynette. So moving on, we've got actually the same category because we felt we had a second winner for outstanding contribution to the support group. And the winner here of that award is none other than Michaela Burson, who a lot of our regular members will know Michaela very well. She also works at the Leicester Balance Clinic. But the award really for Michaela, she's attended most, if not all, of our support group meetings. Even when she's not been presenting, she's been there to contribute and give advice on such a regular basis. Ironically, Michaela can't be at this meeting. It's the first meeting she's missed this year. She's got other commitments, but we've got a little recorded message from Michaela, which again, hopefully will play okay.
Hi everyone, sorry I can't be with you today, unfortunately, but thank you very much indeed for the award. It's very kind of you. It's always so lovely to see how much you support each other and how positive this group is, and it's a pleasure to be part of it. Thank you very much indeed.
So well done, Michaela. She's done so much this year. It's really good to see. And moving
Hi
on.
everyone,
sorry. And the next the next category is outstanding contribution, professional care and treatment for the balance community. It's really difficult. There's not enough professional care and treatment out there for the balance community. We know just in the UK, let alone out of the UK, there is almost this postcode lottery where some areas are well looked after, most areas are not, and you struggle to see or find good specialists. And this one this year we thought was easier than ever because it was quite an outstanding development that we have mentioned already, but the award goes to both the Leicester Balance Clinic and the Department of Medical Psychology. And the reason is, what a positive development to actually connect those two departments and take, as we mentioned just a few moments ago, those issues of anxiety that can lead to all sorts of serious issues, depression, etc., to actually have now a formal and free way of being referred for that help, but has taken the cooperation of both the Balance Clinic and the Department of Medical Psychology. So I think, Andrew, if you're there on behalf of the Balance Clinic, a few words of wisdom from you, please. Andrew Clements, are you there?
You. On behalf of the Balance Clinic, and thank you.
There's your award.
Yes, it's great now that we're linking up with the psychological element, which over previous years has been missing from our balance patients, and hopefully Lynette will notice that all of our clinicians, as in the therapists, are building some sort of counselling element into our treatments anyway. So understanding that, and Michaela's doing some sort of hypnotherapy sessions, and we're doing mindfulness sessions, so trying to address, because we're fully aware that vestibular problems do create such anxiety and stress for the people with the problem. So it's great that it's going to be looking addressed.
Thanks, Andrew. A question really both for Andrew and Lynette. We know we're very lucky Leicestershire has now got this link, this connection, that someone attending the Balance Clinic can request a referral. Is there any general advice we can give to people outside of Leicestershire where I believe there may not even be a department of medical psychology? What could we say to anyone who's seeking help for their balance condition? How can they talk to their clinicians about discovering if such help as this exists outside of the Leicestershire NHS Trust?
Well, let Lynette answer that first.
Yeah, I guess it would be just trying to talk to the consultants or whoever's involved in their care and trying to ask whether there's a health psychology. Sometimes they're termed different things. It could be health psychology, medical psychology department, and see whether that kind of exists, but it doesn't necessarily exist in all trusts and all places. So it may be that you kind of, in terms of mental health care, that's delivered by kind of just a generic kind of mental health team as opposed to a specific kind of health related psychology service. So sadly, those things may not exist, and those links might not be there for people.
Andrew, any ideas?
Well, no, that's the difficult one. I suppose what you need to do is find some health professional who's interested in vestibular problems, whether it's an OT, a physio, an audiologist, a psychologist. You have to find some member of the team who's interested with vestibular problems and tap into what they can provide. There are quite a few good resources out on the internet if you can access it, but I think ultimately I found it's quite interesting looking up things on mindfulness, because mindfulness can be used in so many different ways. If there's nothing available, you can't really go wrong doing something mindful. Whereas exercise wise, there are so many vestibular exercises on the internet, but it's actually difficult to know what to do. Whereas mindfulness is, it's, if I say easy, it's easy to understand. No, it's hard to do, but it's very easy to understand the concept of trying to help clear your mind. And then there are some resources which are relatively easy to access on the internet.
Good. But thanks both of you for what you've done this year with you, and we really do hope this will be a great example that maybe others in the future will look to follow. And certainly we hope our members, if they're not based around Leicester, will cite this as an example where they are, because one day, but this should be available to everyone. It's a huge issue for most of us with balance conditions. So thanks again. Moving on now, if I can get my display to work. There we go. We've got now an unusual one, Best International Contribution. For those of you who don't know, we are affiliated with VIDA, who are based in America, who Andrew mentioned earlier. Vestibular.org is a wonderful resource there. This is looking at who out there in the world, not based in the UK, has helped our balance community this year. We felt there was a clear outstanding winner this year, and for those of you who have not seen this yet, do look at Kimberly Warner's production of Life Rebalance Chronicles. This does also star Rupal, is one of the people in these various episodes. It's an amazing series of videos that really gets to the nub of what it is emotionally to live with a balance condition, and how desperate life can seem. But as again with what we do, if you follow the video journey, you'll see there is hope there as things do get better. But an amazing set of videos that really show the human side to the condition. We will put a link out later, so anyone who's not seen these videos can watch them. They're so good. If any of you are struggling with family or friends that just can't understand why you seem to be so devastated, get them to watch these videos. They'll begin to understand it's not just you, that it really does affect your life. Kimberly is based, lucky Kimberly, West Coast America, so she's currently in bed, as I think it would be something like 5 a.m. out there. So what we've done is just recorded a quick thank you from Kimberly, and Kimberly directed and produced the videos on behalf of VIDA.
Oh my gosh, you guys. I mean, I feel like this entire vestibular community has become family this past year. It's been such a long, arduous 6-year journey with MDDS, but looking back, I'd have to say every single moment of it was worth it because it brought me you. It shaped my life's purpose, working on the Life of Balance Chronicles. And it's nurtured a joy and energy in me, in my heart, that I've never felt before, but that I never really thought that I would even be able to have living with this vestibular disorder. And so working on the Life and Balance Chronicles with Vita in 2021 was just like the most deeply rewarding experience and beyond thrilling to combine my love for filmmaking with patient narratives and amazing cast and everything that they shared and their transparency. It was all just like so near and dear to my heart. You all have become a lifeline for me. It's just an incredible honor, and I'm so happy that it's touching lives. Thank you.
Brilliant. So well done, Kimberly, and we will put the link up for watching those videos. Definitely the best content we've seen so far for our community. We now move to, this is a first for us, category nominated by you, the members. So we've loved that because you, as members, have been able to tell us who has helped you, who's made a difference this year. And I think, as Andrew Hugo mentioned earlier about thanking those who care for us, it's so important to acknowledge people who go out of their way, go beyond the call of duty, and help us as individuals. This category is for people who've been a best balance friend but aren't members of our group. I'm delighted to say the nomination was by Deborah Miller, who hopefully is with her, and the winner is Tracy Marston, who's an employee support officer with Tees Esconware Valley NHS Foundation. Deborah, are you there, and can you just tell us very briefly what Tracy's been doing for you this year, please?
Yeah, hi. Tracy has been really, really supportive towards me. She was helping me. I contacted her every few weeks towards the end of my period of being off sick. And she was really, really supportive of me, helping me to prepare for my sickness review meetings and to plan for the discussions that I was having with occupational health. And as I was progressing to coming back to work, she was like helping me to prepare for the occupational health meetings and to then have discussions when I came back to work, and gave me advice about contacting Access to Work, who were really good and supported me in doing an Access to Work assessment. So they gave me advice on like what computer programs that I could get, and like computer equipment, and also that the advice that they gave was useful in terms of negotiating no longer working in a busy open plan office, but actually I'm using a desk share with some sort of desk sharing with one of the medics at work. So I'm not always in the office on my own, but quite often in an office on my own, desk sharing with so I'm in with one medic often, but sometimes I'm not a medic. I'm a manager, but I share an office with them rather than being in a busy open plan office. And it's just that's worked out much better for me because it was just too distracting for me, the noise and the movement of people around the office, and the lights in that office were terrible and really, really affected me. So it's been much better since I've moved offices, and through Tracy's support, it's really, and having that Access to Work assessment, I would certainly recommend it for everybody who's at work. And you can self-refer, you don't have to ask your boss to refer. It's a government agency. You can just go on the website, Access to Work website on .gov.uk, and your employer is required to take notice of the recommendations that they make. And it's made a big difference because it's an external agency. They are the recommendations come through. Occupational health listen to them. Your employer has to listen to them, and it's gives you a good platform for having those discussions.
Yeah.
So we recommend them, and they give some funding towards the adaptations that you get. So
brilliant. Thanks, Deborah. We'll put those links on the website as well.
Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah, thank you.
And we keep promising this, but next year we will get a section on helping members and non-members with this issue of employment, because as you all know, Deborah, it's not easy with any balance condition, and
no,
when we're at our lowest, we've lost our confidence in just every aspect of our life. What we don't need is an employer making the wrong decisions or doing the wrong things, which so many of them, so many see as just problems they don't want in their organisation.
Yeah.
And it's nice seeing from here, Tracy can't be with us, but she said, she's humble getting the reward. She's so aware that people with long-term health conditions, that more than ever, that's when they need support. And as Tracy knows, sadly, there are too few organisations that are prepared to do this. So if any members watching this or watching the video, do be aware that balance conditions are a hidden disability. I can't talk about American law, but for UK, you have got employment protection. And it's worth any employer understanding that if they were to do the wrong thing, if a case ever goes to a tribunal, because this would be a disability case, there are unlimited damages. So it's worth employers doing the right thing and understanding what the right thing is to do. Mm-hmm. But as I say, we've a lot of us, too many of us, have experienced very, very poor treatment in terms of employment. So that we hope will change. Thanks, Deborah, for making that nomination. And well done, Tracy.
Yeah, Tracy's been great. She really has been so supportive, and she's got a background in equalities and diversity, and she's been really, really supportive towards me. And it's been great having somebody there who's, anytime I've wanted to meet with her, she's always been able to meet with me in a few days. Yeah. And it's just been really, really good to have someone outside of the, the management structures, etc., outside of HR, who I've been able to speak with, and it's been fabulous. It's really, really helped me.
Lovely.
I'm back at work. I've been back at work 7 months. I'm not saying it's easy. It's, but I've touched wood. Never been in every day without any problems. I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm doing it.
Well
so,
done.
yeah.
Well done.
Okay, thank you. Long way to continue.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And next category is again nominated by the members. And this case, it's actually for Best Balance Friend, who is a fellow member of the sport group. So this, the older, longer term members will know, I keep mentioning this every time. We've got an opt-in group called Member to Member. It's where you agree to provide, it can be just your email address and phone number. That is then circulated to other members who've opted in. You can then talk to each other. You can make contact, make superb friendships, and you've all got so much in common that I'd just ask all of you to consider opting in. We then issue a new list. The next one will be issued 2 weeks after this meeting, so just around Christmas. So anyone who wants to join the Member to Member group, just email in and we'll add your details to it. So this one is important because it means one of our members has not only been getting support, but they've been giving so much support to others. And I'm delighted to say the winner is this year none other than Ella Samples. Are you there, Ella? I hope you are. So please speak now. Come on, Ella, where are you? Can anyone see Ella there? I've got a restricted view. Can you see her there, Rupal?
I can't see her. I'm desperate.
Yeah.
Come on, Ella.
Yes. One thing that I have discovered on my journey is that I've been planning a program that's fitness program. It's a fitness program, but it's interwoven with, you know, the rehab. And I've gradually developed it really, because I started off with vestibular and balance issues. And then I went on to this triple PD, which, you know, really was causing me a lot of problems. You know, I mean, I could step out of my car and I'd just go completely, you know, down. Or if I met a great crowd of people, immediately I'd go down. So what I've done is I've developed well, I haven't developed the exercises, but I've selected certain exercises that help with my balance, and then certain exercises that help with my visual, you know, so that, you know, the visual overload. And that seems to have helped me a lot.
That's good, Ella, but remember, this award is for you supporting others.
Oh yes, well, yes.
If I add that you were nominated by 2 different members who said what terrific, upbeat, cheerful support you've given on every contact. So, and I must add, what others wouldn't know, you did win an Outstanding Member of the Year last year. So you've now set a record that you're the only person to win 2 Dizzies. But on behalf of the group, thank you for being you, for being so positive, actually having your own condition and battling through it. And almost at every meeting, you contribute and make these lovely comments about what's working for you. But what a great example of how you're helping others as well as getting through your own condition. So well done you. And as you're there, a little round of applause from everyone for Ella being.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you very much. Yes, that's very interesting. Thank you.
Well done. And your award's coming very soon to you. It will be delivered soon, Ella. Just moving on now, the final category, Outstanding Member Contribution of the Year. And this is the member who we feel has just done that extra bit, whether it's sharing of their story, whether it's sharing of themselves, but they've helped in a big way. And it normally is followed by comments by other members when that member has appeared or done something. And this was very much the case with this winner. And I'm delighted to say the winner this year of Outstanding Member is Amy Sparrow. Are you there, Amy? Please speak and you will appear. Are you there, Amy?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. And Amy,
Thank you so much.
If I just say, we were all so impressed when you spoke at one of our meetings and explained how from such an early age, your life really had been so dominated by serious balance condition. And yet you spoke so eloquently and was so inspirational in how you viewed your situation and how you were going forward with your life. So this is why we felt it had to be you this year, Outstanding Member Contribution. And we will, for those of you who've not seen it, we are going to just cut out the section where you gave your little talk in the meeting. We're going to post that as a separate video. But it was an amazing contribution. And well done you for what you shared with us and what you've been doing with your life. I don't know if you can just tell us what have you been up to lately, since we last had your talk some 6 months ago.
Oh, thank you. I'm really glad I've been able to help some people maybe feel a bit more positive. I've just been, I mentioned, didn't I, that I won some funding to do a PhD looking into the psychological impact of growing up with Meniere's. So as part of that, as part of the funding package, because it comes from a research council, so I'm doing some training at the moment in social research. So I've been trying to get to grips with the philosophy behind different research methods, and it's very confusing, but yeah, it's really good, and I'm looking forward to starting with the actual research, and eventually once I've done the training, and yeah.
Excellent. No, well done, and thanks very much. And again, your award will be coming to you soon.
Thank you.
But thanks ever so much. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen, the awards. I will shut up again. All I can say is thank you everyone who's won there. Also, what we will consider, we had lots of nominations from members. We're going to look early in the year of whether we can share some of those on our website. So we don't just see the winners, but you see others that have been doing great things for our community. And we just hope that all of these winners, they help inspire other great deeds, actions next year for anyone and everyone in the balanced community. So,
thanks, Kevin.
Thanks very much.
Thanks very much. So we've got a couple of more questions to get through with our panel. So question number 3 for the three of you this afternoon. In the news, it's been widely reported, of course, that the NHS treatment waiting times are simply getting worse and worse. Two-parter question, really. What is the outlook for 2022 for Leicestershire waiting times? And B, what do the panel suggest if anyone is suffering and finds that they're just desperate for some assistance during this time? Is there any form of self-help to reduce the suffering? Obviously, we know that not everybody is based here in Leicestershire, so some general advice off the back of that would be great also. Shall we start with Andrew Clements?
Yes, I mean, that's quite hard. It's here within Leicestershire, I mean, the department was closed for a long time, so there are long waits for new patients to see the consultants. I mean, from a rehab point of view, my lists have been full all year. Every week of the year, my list is completely full. But to get onto my list, having seen the doctor within the clinic, the waiting time isn't excessively long. I mean, I'll say it's looking 6 to 8 weeks once the doctor has been seen to be seen for rehab. But getting that first doctor's appointment is a difficult one.
Do you know what the waiting times are for that, Andrew?
No, because I don't have to deal with that.
No.
The referrals just go straight through. Where those that have seen me know when I work, I'm just completely seeing patients the whole time. So I'm not actually looking. I don't see waiting lists or waiting times. I would say that if you're looking to be referred, this is in Leicestershire, it's a bit harder for elsewhere. If you are looking to be referred, you do need to try to be referred to one of the balance doctors first. If you think, or if your GP tells you he'll just send you to ENT to get you in the system, that often backfires, because once you've seen any of the ENT doctors who aren't specialists in balance, even if they then refer you to the balance clinic, that has a lower weighting to get to see the balance clinic than if a GP refers you straight to the balance clinic. So sometimes it can seem a bit longer to be referred to the balance clinic, but if you try to bypass it by seeing a different ENT doctor, if they then refer, the mechanism is slightly different. But what you can do outside of Leicestershire is more challenging. Finding clinicians who are interested in balance is the first step. using the support groups like this one, the Many Air Society, or support groups in your area is important, because sometimes the support groups can give sometimes as much help as actually seeing clinicians, because a lot of the symptoms are things you need to talk about. So sorry, it's a vague answer, I know, but I do believe it's quite a few months to see the consultants if you're referred as a new patient.
Thank you, Andrew. My apologies. I think my internet failed, so I missed some of your answer. I'm not sure if that was just me. Hopefully people can hear me and I'm back up and running. Yeah. Lynette, where are you?
Hiya. Yeah, so I'm employed by Leicestershire Partnership Trust, so LPT. So we're in the Mental Health Trust, and we monitor our waiting lists very closely, and we prioritise according to need. We have continued across all services in LPT to provide a service throughout the pandemic, and we've been doing this in a number of ways, and that for us in our department will include things such as telephone consultations. We do virtual online things like this, but we have MS Teams, and we use a software called Attend Anywhere, which means that we can do a video consultation, which is fantastic. And we're also looking at kind of groups and things to manage waiting lists. They're always really helpful. And I guess in terms of, if you were on a waiting list within our department or a department in LPT, then we would work with you once we've had that assessment in terms of what to do in terms of managing that wait and things that you can do. There'll be a plan in place about kind of how to manage the wait, because we do appreciate that can be lengthy. And I guess kind of I think part of the question was about kind of if you're kind of worried and kind of not coping very well while you're on a waiting list. In terms of LPT, what I would encourage you to do, you can go to the website, so to Leicestershire Partnership Trust website, and I can give these details to Kevin to post, of course. If you go onto the website, there's a little button at the top of the screen that says Urgent Mental Health Help, and you press on that button and it will give you the options. It does it like a traffic light system, so it gives you kind of different phases in terms of what you can do. So in terms of whether that's contacting the GP, we have a service called Central Access Point, which is for people who feel that they're in crisis, and of course kind of the emergency services as needed. But that will give you kind of the information based on what's going on for you and how you feel. So it is there on the website. And I think generally, in terms of resources that can be helpful, if you're kind of on a waiting list in terms of mental health, yes, direct to the LPT website, but also don't forget there's things like Get Self-Help. That's a really good website for resources around mental health. That's brilliant. There's Mind, also has lots of leaflets and information guides for people. There's apps as well. I think we mentioned mindfulness earlier on. Andrew mentioned that. So Headspace, Calm, Frantic World, Meditainment are all great apps around mindfulness and relaxation. And there's a thing called My Apps Library as well, which has a lot of trusted NHS mental health apps around sleep and mental health issues. So there are things out there that you can be kind of doing while you're kind of on a waiting list, and kind of keep,
It would be great to
get
that.
Look. So I'll kind of make sure you've got that, and you can. That's fine.
Thank you, Lynette. And Andrew Hugill, from a patient's perspective, someone that's suffering, that's perhaps feeling a little bit desperate for help. What is there any advice that you can give us, Andrew?
Well, yes, I think in some ways it's already been said, using the groups like this one. I mean, we've already had in the Disease Awards an account of people helping other people. And I think, this network is fantastic for that. And I suppose I'd observe that, since I was diagnosed back in 2009, there has been a change in the culture, I think, and groups like this one are a good example of it. There is more awareness and more willingness to help. And I think that's partly a result of the kind of thing we're talking about with NHS waiting lists and that kind of thing, the need for people to form networks and be able to support one another. And then the other thing I just mentioned, again, this has been mentioned already, but things like access to work, there is a legal compliance on employers to make reasonable adjustments. for people with disabilities. And so, you can put pressure on employers to do that. But more than that, there are schemes like the Disability Confidence Scheme, where employers can actually become, actually do more than just comply. They can actually make a positive environment for people with disabilities at work. So encouraging employers, perhaps through the EDI office in your organisation, if there is one, that's Equality, Diversity and Inclusion. What tends to happen with EDI is that the disability gets relegated. It's a sort of poor cousin of the other issues. But that needs to change, and we can do a lot by advocating for that. So taking a kind of positive, proactive approach would be my advice. I'm not sure, again, I've slightly drifted from your question about somebody who's feeling desperate and wants help. And that, I mean, all you can do is use organisations like this one to contact others in a similar situation, I think.
Great, thank you, Andrew. And don't forget our sort of...
Rupert,
yes.
if I can just add a couple of things there. One of the reasons we set up the group is because we're so aware if you are not even diagnosed, but you've got some awful problem, but you can't get to see anyone, you can't imagine a worse situation really, where there's something wrong with you, but have no idea what it is and don't know when anyone is going to see you. So please, anyone out there, any new members or anyone who gets to watch this, it's why our group's here, is at least contact us. We're not doctors, we're not clinicians, but we can kind of explain what we know and give you some comfort that you're not going crazy, that it is a real medical thing. And the other thing I must add, and anyone who is working for the NHS, put your fingers in your ears, I honestly believe the more you shout as individuals, the sooner you get things to happen. And I know some of us are not in a condition to shout if we're very low, and some personalities, last thing you ever want to do is shout at anyone. Well, again, use us. There's Balance Buddies. We're here to help and give people the confidence where you feel you're being ignored or no one's giving you any answers. And this, obviously, I can only talk personally. Through COVID, my GP system is nearly collapsed, and trying to get anything out of anyone is so difficult. None of that solves your problem. None of that gets you nearer to a resolution. So it's just a message from me is don't hesitate to try and fight to make a noise. If you can't, get people around you who can. And if you really contact me, contact any of the Balance Buddies, we will help you make a noise if that's what it takes. Sometimes I feel if you just feel you're doing something, it may take as long to get to see a specialist, but at least you feel you're doing something. Thanks, Rupert.
It's lovely to see, a lot of people saying they wish they'd found this group sooner. And, it's been a real support. And I think it has been for each and every one of us that's part of this group. And we really appreciate the support from everybody. So thank you. One final question, which may or may not be relevant or you may or may not be able to answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And please feel free to say that, this is not something that you can answer, but we're keen to end the year on a positive note and sort of looking forward. Can the panel tell us of any practical beneficial developments likely to appear next year that will aid diagnosis or treatment of those with balance conditions, and B, what longer term advancements may be on the horizon to give some cheer to our balance community? Andrew Clements.
I think with triple PD now is becoming much more recognised as a diagnostic label, and the treatment for it is actually getting better now, because it gives actually it covers a condition with a set of symptoms, and people are talking about triple PD, whereas before people may have had symptoms where their system was hypervigilant, or there was increased sensitivity to certain things, and other doctors didn't fully understand what the patients were trying to say was triple PD gives us a label now that, especially as health professionals, we understand what it means, and we can try and help other people understand what it means. So that's actually positive. The treatment strands for that are looking quite positive, which again involves rehab and exercise, but it also might mean medication. And the medications do seem to help if you can get used to them. So we've seen a few people, well, quite a few people with triple PD that have had good responses to combination of vestibular exercise and medical management with a different range of medicines. So that's something positive for the future. Diagnostically, we're getting used to our special chair that people hate, the Royal, the TRV chair for treating BPPV. It actually has helped a lot with people who've had very difficult to treat BPPV. No one likes the chair that goes in it, but we do have people asking for it when they've had it because it does seem to work. And I said it does work for people that had BPPV for a long time, and then it can help. So if you've had BPPV for a long time, it's something which it can help. It's not the nicest experience, but then again, BPPV is out. And I saw one of Lena's comments about BPPV. I think people need to know that BPPV is one of life's worst experiences you can have. When you have the little crystals in your fluid in your ear moving, when you lie down, it actually takes you out of your control. So people that haven't had it don't understand that. So it is a very horrible situation. Sometimes you have to learn to understand it. And what I try and do is to work with people and show them the mechanics of BPPV, because it isn't a serious condition. It just makes you feel absolutely horrible. So if you can understand it, it doesn't make the mechanics any different, but at least you know what's going on. And if I'll say touch wood, because this is really going to make it happen now, and I don't want it, in over 20 years of treating people, I haven't had anybody sick when I've done an Epley manoeuvre on them.
That's impressive.
It is impressive because I don't like people being sick. So, but what it means is I talk them through the manoeuvre first, tell them what's going to happen so they know exactly what they're experiencing and why, because I don't want them to be sick. And I know lots of the doctors have people being sick all the time because they just do it and don't warn people and take them through it. So I've set myself up to fail there now. So well, Lena, if I do see you next year, you're not allowed to be sick.
Yes, and you can't break this record now, Andrew.
No, I don't want that record breaking at all.
You just can't do it. You're not allowed to. And I'm intrigued about the chair because I've not seen the chair before, and I think a few people haven't seen this chair. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see this chair maybe in the future.
Well, in fact, with the chair, the interesting thing with the chair, when it was installed, the guy came over from, I think it was Denmark, and he was showing it to, and I said to him, how many people have been sick on the chair? And he goes, we've had no one be sick on the chair. Our fourth patient was sick on the chair. I'm glad I wasn't doing it, but our fourth patient on the chair. So the chair is, I mean, that isn't to put people off. The chair is very good for recalcitrant BPPV or bilateral BPPV, because that's a hard one to treat when you've got the crystals in both ears at the same time, because when you treat one ear, the other ear is in exactly the wrong position. So basically you're tipping them out on the other side. Well, the chair can put you into positions to treat both ears at the same time.
That's making me feel very ill now. Thanks, Andrew, for that. That's really helpful. Oh, Lynette, can we... I can't remember what the question was now. I can't remember what the question was at all.
I'm feeling sick.
Yeah.
That's fantastic though, isn't it? What an innovation. It's absolutely brilliant. I guess, as I said earlier, from our department point of view, I'm closely monitoring the referrals that we're receiving from our colleagues, Andrew and team, over in UHL. So that means that if we have enough referrals in our department, we can start to look at other things like groups, interventions, as well as doing our one-to-one work. So that's positive. I think that's great. Looking forward for next year. And just to highlight from an LPT point of view, we've done a big consultation called Step Up to Great in LPT and the Mental Health Trust. That's been a big public consultation, and that's being discussed now at the CCG board next week. So keep looking on the LPT website if you're interested around that, because it was a big consultation just around kind of how to improve mental health care in Leicestershire. So that's all around things like access, making therapeutic environments better, increasing patient experience and involvement, really looking at kind of our crisis support. So a lot has gone into that. So that's fantastic, and that will kind of carry forward next year. And again, if you've been a past patient or client within the Mental Health Trust and you'd like to get involved in that, then do let us know via Kevin, because again, we're very interested to hear from service users and carers who would like to co-design some of those aspects moving forward. So once this is kind of launched in the next few weeks as a strategy, then we're going to want kind of people again on forums to help us implement those changes. So again, it's a good opportunity. If you're up for kind of patient client involvement, then please, let us know by Kevin, because we can forward you to that. So yeah.
We love patient involvement.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
Exactly. So I knew you'd be the group for that. So please, let us know. Yeah. Good.
Thank you. And Andrew, you're our tech man, really. You know all the technology and stuff like that we can use to help us with our balance conditions in some shape or form. Are there things that we can look forward to trying maybe in the future that might be useful to us?
Well, I think the two areas that I'm seeing progress in are AI and genetics. So on the AI side, the main focus there is on diagnosis. And we've already had in this conversation quite a lot of discussion about the problem of things being unclear. And part of the problem is the language that's used to describe these conditions. We say dizzy, all these different words that kind of mean slightly different things, but they're a bit imprecise. So what's going on in AI at the moment is training systems to understand the terminologies. And hopefully this will eventually lead to some kind of assistant for GPs that will enable them to make more accurate diagnoses in the early stages. So that's quite a long-term project, but there is work underway on that right now in Leicester. So hopefully, we'll actually get to a point where GPs will be able to be assisted more effectively in diagnostic procedures. Genetics, I know much less about. So, if Peter were here, he would probably be able to answer this much better than I can. But I am aware that there is a lot of work being done in the field of precision medicine, which is to say medicine that is adapted to the individual, and looking at genetic markers for things like Meniere's disease. And that does seem to be pretty promising. So again, that will affect diagnosis, but will also affect treatment ultimately, if we can identify the genetic markers that make up a condition like Meniere's. So those two scientific developments, I think, show us some promise. I appreciate that neither offers much comfort if you're experiencing a problem right now, but in the longer term, I have hope in both those things. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you to the panel. We haven't finished just yet because Kelly's been monitoring the questions coming in on chat. So Kelly, over to you.
Hello. So yeah, a couple of quick ones. One for you, Andrew Hugo. Going back to your headphones that you mentioned, the noise cancelling ones. One of the questions we've had was about whether they work with firework noise.
Oh,
obviously with New Year's.
Oh goodness me, yes. Fireworks are a nightmare, aren't they? I just yeah. So yes, they do. It very much depends what kind you get. If you go for ear defenders, the kind that people operating pneumatic drills wear, those will eliminate all sound, and you can effectively insulate yourself totally. But I think there's a risk associated with that, in that if you isolate yourself completely, then obviously you can't hear anything, and there may be things you want to hear, like warnings or whatever. So I use a pair of what are called Bose Comfort noise cancelling headphones. They're a bit expensive, but they're worth every penny in my view. And if you want a Christmas present, go for them. Other brands are available, I should say, but those are the best ones I've found. And they do certainly reduce firework noise. You will still hear the fireworks, but they will be much less impactful. So what you will hear is the fact that fireworks are taking place, but it won't have that same shock effect that is so disorienting. So yeah, yes is the short answer.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Andrew. That's really helpful. Andrew Clements, I've got one for you as well about this fabulous chair that you've been talking about. And yeah, Debbie Lou would like to know, does it actually get rid of BPPV?
Permanently. I read the comment. The answer will be no to that, because nothing gets rid of BPPV permanently unless the ear isn't working, because BPPV, once the ear's been damaged, you have to understand what BPPV is, and it's just some debris floating in the wrong place in the fluid in the inner ear. So when the manoeuvres, whether it's the Epley manoeuvre done by me or Professor Ray or done by the chair, puts the debris back to where it's come from, it's still debris. It can fall out again. So some people can have an Epley manoeuvre once and they don't have any symptoms for 10 years. Another person needs an Epley every 2 to 3 weeks. It's completely different to how easy it is for the debris to fall out. So I think whenever you see your clinicians and you're having BP, get them to actually show you what BPPV is, because I liken it to when you do a maneuver, it's like tipping some little stones back into a vase of stones. They might just sit on top and can fall out again, or they might fall back into the vase and then they wedge in and then they're stuck there and then they won't fall out again. So it's understanding the mechanics of it. What the chair does is it allows us to be a bit stronger and rougher. It allows us to put people into slightly worse positions where we couldn't do that on the bed, have them tipped further back because they're strapped to a chair. We can bang the chair and jolt some crystals. So it's a bit of a stronger technique. And it's always an option that when people are in the clinic, if they're seeing me, I can show them the chair. I've never put anyone through for the chair that I haven't shown the chair to first, because it does look a bit dramatic, but it has been very good for bilateral problems or very resistant problems. You don't need the chair for, if I say basic BPPV, because we can do a maneuver in 3 minutes in the clinic. We use the chair when people keep getting BPPV coming back, or they've got it on both sides, or they've got a funny neck and we can't put their neck in the right position. There's a whole range of reasons to do it, but it's just basically we do the Epley maneuver to the chair and the person's strapped to the chair. So they go through the maneuver the chair's being put through.
I want to know what this chair looks like.
Well, next time you're in the see us at the clinic or something, we'll show you.
Kelly,
I'm sure some of the talks, Kevin will have some pictures.
Yeah, he must have.
And
right?
videos. We videoed Peter Ray on it, but he didn't like it.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Andrew.
I'm going to have to go soon, Kevin, because I'm in a clinic here.
That's fair enough, Andrew. You've done very well for us today.
So, are there any more questions, Kelly, for Andrew?
There's just one more that I've got for Lynette, actually, so that everybody's had one. So Lynette, this one's for you, from Nicola. She'd like to know, how do you deal with the fear of asking people for what you need? And she explained that she has a fear of not wanting to stand out, be different, cause problems for others, would often rather just try and cope on her own. So she's just asking for some advice.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of comes back to kind of something about you, doesn't it? And about kind of the values and the things that kind of drive you. And I think when you've got that thing of like, you know, you're an independent person, it can be very difficult to kind of give that up and kind of change how you are and how you interact with people when you're not used to doing it. It's so unlike you to do that by the sounds of things. You like to kind of keep things in, you know, deal with it yourself, and it can be very hard to kind of let that bit go and kind of do that. And I think kind of it, in terms of how you manage that, I guess it's kind of recognizing that and saying, look, you know, this is hard for me. It's unlike me to do this. and then to kind of give it a go, perhaps choosing kind of one person that you think kind of would be kind of more approachable, kind of kinder in terms of their response towards you. So choose one person or one situation. Start easy. Start with something really kind of simple and straightforward that you can manage and that you can give it a go and test that water, and then see how it feels and see how you feel as a consequence. And I think that's the important thing. Until you've kind of done it and given it that go, you don't then get that different response to how you've kind of been doing things. Kind of, you don't get the reinforcement, do you, to kind of carry on and say, yeah, actually that's worked out for me because I've got such and such that's happened differently. So I think it is about testing the water, but do it in a very safe situation that kind of doesn't feel as anxiety provoking as perhaps something else. Think of it, like a phobia, where you'd have a hierarchy, wouldn't you, working up towards kind of the greatest deal. So work at it like that and think of the one situation that could be an easy starting place. But I think you can only ever, with all of these things, you can only ever kind of manage your side of the communication, can't you? We don't know how people are going to respond to any requests that we make of them or how we ask them to help us, etc. You can only really be responsible for how you're asking. And I think as long as you're kind of careful about that and do that in an assertive way, then hopefully you'll get a good response. So give it a go and be gentle. It's hard work.
Fabulous. Thank you for that, Lynette. That sounds like some really good advice there from yourself. I think that is all for questions, unless I've missed anything, RuPaul.
No. Does anybody have any final questions for the panel before I ask a question to you all? Any final questions? Just put your hand up, because it's probably just easier and quicker if I see hands.
I'm not seeing anything on the chat, so I think we're good.
I think we're all good to go. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much to Andrew Hugill, Andrew Clements, and to Lynette Simpson as well. Thank you all for your time, effort and energy and advice. Great advice, because, absolutely vital, I think, and hopefully we've all learnt something and given us hope for the future as well, which is always a good thing. Before we actually say goodbye, it would just be lovely, because we've been asking the panel about sort of New Year resolutions, if any of the members of the group could share some positive New Year resolutions they're planning to make for the new year that will help with coping with our balance conditions. Who's going to start for me? Is it Ella?
Ella's got a hand up. Go for it.
You're on mute, Ella.
On mute, Ella.
It's to keep going with those exercises. I mean, I really do. I mean, gosh, how much time I spend on the exercises. And also I've got them all typed out. And because I've got them typed out, then I can change the order. And I see what result I get from, say, going with the visual first or going with the balance first. And it does help, and I do feel I'm coping better.
Fantastic. Andrew Clements happily nodding away there, because this is your bag, and keep doing the exercises is really, really important, isn't it, Andrew?
Yeah, it is.
So you've got an advocate there. Ella says, don't give up on the exercises. Right, Deborah's got her hand up. Hi, Deborah.
Hi. I would say it's probably learning to accept that you might get knockbacks. And the difficult thing about this is not knowing how long the symptoms are going to last for. But I would say, tell yourself, if you've got to that stage where you have improved, that you will get back to it. And just to go right back to basics. If you can't walk around, and I couldn't, go on all fours. If you have to go down the stairs to get to the downstairs on your bottom, do that, because at least you've achieved it. It doesn't matter how you do the journey and how long, so long as you get to the point you need to get to.
Great advice there. Absolutely great. I know there's one final question, Kelly, that's just come through very quickly for Andrew Clements before he disappears, and this was relating to the exercises.
Yeah, I can read that.
You've got it, Andrew. That's fabulous. I'm scanning.
So it says, keep exercising when things are better, as in good times and bad times. As a general rule, if you get back to being basically normal, you don't have to keep the exercises up specifically. There is a small subgroup of people, and you can never pick who they're going to be, who, when they don't do the exercises, they gradually regress. So they do need the exercises long term. But basically, once things have normalized and you're pretty good, there's no harm in letting the exercises go, because real life will be more challenging than the exercises, as long as you're being active and doing everything. So, so the exercises aren't for the rest of your life. You pick and mix and sort of dip into them if you need them, because the exercises don't cure the problem, they retune it, and lots of things can interfere and make things go out of tune, and that's when your symptoms come back. So it's understanding that. So no, you don't have to keep doing the exercises if you're good. So as long as you're doing normal things and being active, I mean, there's no harm in doing them. And I do have lots of patients that do them for years and years and years, which is fine, because they are good for your neck. And there's no problem with them. But if you're feeling good, you don't have to keep doing them.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Andrew. That's, I think.
Okay. Any final sort of resolutions that we can look forward to that you as individuals have made as part of the group? Who can I pick? I'm not going to pick on anyone today. I'm not going to pick on anyone. No. Kevin. Oh, Andrew.
Rupal, if I just say my resolution, we're going to make even more noise next year. We're going to do even more as a support group. The good news is, by the way, I don't know if anyone, we've had 2 different surveys done on our support group this year. I think there's a chance that even the NHS might start to see support groups can make a difference, which would mean there could be more groups around the country helping people like ourselves. But hopefully all of you next year are going to help us make more noise, and just by participating, being on these meetings, contributing, is making a difference, not just for fellow members, but thousands of people watch these videos through the year, and hopefully it gives others advice and help when they most need it. So certainly for me, my resolution is let's keep doing what we're doing, making more noise and sharing these things together. So thanks everyone.
Absolutely. And I want to say a huge thank you, I think, on behalf of from all of us to Kevin for starting the group in the first place and keeping it running, and all the effort and energy that you, Yola, and Chris, who is on the call as well, put into keeping this group going. And without you, I guess none of us would have been here in the first place. So huge thank you to you, Yola, and Chris, for all the effort and energy. So really appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. I'll leave the last words to you, Kevin, as always.
Well, Merry Christmas, everyone. And again, forget us that try and run this. It's all about you. This is what this group is for. And it's just a joy to see people getting better, getting to a better place as we do. And I assure you, I can only tell you my personal experience. When I was first struck down, I thought my world had ended. And I've gone on to live the most amazing life. And this is one of the most amazing bits of it, is being associated with all of you guys. But just keep working at it. Things get better. They really do. And this is part of the process. It's sharing, talking, discussing, not being ashamed, not being quiet, not feeling guilty. And do yourself this Christmas, or do a favour, be kind to yourself. and don't push yourself any harder than you need to. Have a holiday, enjoy what you can of life, and it's going to get better. But thanks everyone, thanks award winners, thanks Rupal, Kelly, all have a brilliant Christmas, and we're back February the 19th for more, and possibly Professor Ray. But thank you all, have a great time. See you next year.
Merry
Bye-bye.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas,
Merry
everyone.
Christmas, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.